Wait, hold on a second, Charmander. That's not necessarily confirmed yet. Let's not blow things out of proportion now, okay? Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're going to be going over some recent news that could maybe indicate that Pokemon at some point in the future could have some open world elements like Breath of the Wild. Now, full on disclaimer, there isn't any actual official confirmation that's saying that Pokemon will be like Breath of the Wild when it comes to an open world. However, there are some headlines coming from different interviews from Junichi Masuda, the director for the Pokemon games, that could suggest that they may take some elements from those games at some point in the future. Now, the recent interview in question is one with Eurogamer where they interviewed Junichi Masuda, and they posed a question in reference to Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and how Pokemon could relate, so let's go ahead and read their question for context and then Masuda's response. So, last time we spoke, back at the Let's Go reveal in Japan, the topic of open world Nintendo Switch games came up, like Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, and you mentioned that there's a possibility that one day Pokemon might follow suit. I know that's purposefully vague, but is that still something that's being considered? Is that something that you may see one day happening on the Nintendo Switch? Well, you know, in general, I always want to be kind of facing new challenges and trying to, you know, do new things with Pokemon. You know, it's a different matter whether players will actually enjoy that kind of playstyle, but really, you know, things like setting up an AI so that you know real-world Pokemon appear, or different ways to appreciate the game. I'm always kind of thinking of how to approach the Pokemon series from a different aspect, so, in that sense, it's still on the cards. So after reading this excerpt over a few times, I've tried to break it down and understand it, and basically what I've sort of interpreted from this is that Pokemon is not going to necessarily be open world. That might be the case, but there's no official confirmation here. He's not denying it, but at the same time he's talking about how there's different ways how they can improve the Pokemon experience. It's not just making it straight up open world. So then, you know, maybe we shouldn't expect the next Pokemon game to be like Breath of the Wild. However, Masuda has been questioned multiple times about Pokemon maybe being open world like Breath of the Wild. This isn't the first time. And in fact, I went to one with Game Informer back in 2017, before Pokemon Let's Go was even revealed, and I checked that one out as well. Now, there's a whole video interview of that, so I'll put a link to it in the description below. But basically, the gist is, well, Masuda said that not necessarily, right? Again, pretty much the same answer we got this time around. However, he talked about how we encounter Pokemon and that experience and how that relates to the player. And I think that's the important sticking point here, right? It's not so much about Pokemon being open world, but what makes sense for the Pokemon series. If what makes sense is to make the world more open so you can sort of interact with Pokemon in different kinds of ways that make sense for the Pokemon series, then maybe it could happen. Like, he went ahead and said that maybe it could happen, but it wouldn't be quite like how Link does it, where he runs around with a sword killing enemies. Maybe, now this is just my own personal sort of conjecture here, that in the future when Pokemon does eventually happen to be open world, maybe even 2019 with Gen 8, that it's more open but not quite as open as Breath of the Wild, but the actual encounters with the Pokemon are way more interactive than they ever have been before. So for example, let's say you walk into a forest and you see Apom and Mankey in the trees, and you have to think about what interests them to get them to come down. Maybe you have to get them an apple, right? Maybe that would make sense. Or perhaps you want to climb a giant mountain, and unlike Breath of the Wild where you simply scale up as Link with your bare hands, maybe since you're just a normal Pokemon trainer you can't do that, but you can use your Pokemon. So maybe you get on top of the back of a Machamp and you use the move Rock Climb, and it becomes some sort of platforming minigame where you scale up the mountain. And that kind of makes sense to me. And if you think about it, if you look through the previous Pokemon games that have come out, and even Pokemon Let's Go and how the series has progressed, I think they are kind of moving in that direction. So let me explain. So first off, when we saw Generation 6, right, it was definitely an improvement from Generation 5, right? But then we moved to Generation 7, things became even more open. The graphics were certainly improved, the camera moved down a little bit, it was a lot closer to your traditional third-person sort of adventure game in a lot of modern systems, and the world was no longer on a grid-like structure. So I do see them sort of opening things up more and more, because that's what they've been doing already, and I feel like they're going to move even forward in that direction, but I do not expect the next game to be full-on open world. Maybe it'll be more like big segmented areas that all sort of come together. Maybe something along the lines of like Xenoblade, but maybe just not as expansive, but still, you know, so you can get kind of an idea. Big area to sort of connect together. I could see something like that happening in the future for Pokemon. But another interesting thing is how Pokemon have become more expressive over the years. If you look at Pokemon Let's Go, the animations and the expressions for all these different Pokemon are just straight up stellar, and they destroy everything we see in the past. There is just so much there. There's so much attention to detail, and I would love it if they were to continue to expand upon it, and I think they will. I think for Gen 8 we'll basically get those expressions and animations, but for all of the Pokemon. But not only that, let's look at how Pokemon now in Let's Go are roaming the game world. Maybe they will go a step further and do something along those lines, or Pokemon will roam around the game world. But let's just not stop there, right? If you pay attention to what we've seen for Let's Go already, the Pokemon just don't walk around randomly. Some of them run away from you, some of them hide, some of them come towards you. It sort of depends on the actual type of Pokemon and their personality. What if they expand upon this and they sort of take the habitat into question? Maybe you go into a cave and there are Zubats hiding, and the only way to get them to come out of hiding is to shine light upon them, and then you engage, go into battle, maybe then you could catch them, right? I already suggested the possibility of maybe throwing apples at Apom or Mankey in trees to get them to come down from the trees, right? So maybe they'll delve even further into the kinds of interactions you have with these kind of Pokemon, make them more like wild animals, and force us to think about how they interact with the actual habitat of this in-game world. So you see, I can see a lot of different ways how Pokemon could progress. So basically what I expect for Gen 8 Pokemon in 2019, I expect for them to have a lot more animations and expressions, kind of like what they did with Let's Go, but expand upon that further. Really do dig into that whole aspect of Pokemon roaming the game world. I think they'll expand upon that even further as well. I think Pokemon will do different things in the environment, and you have to think about how they interact with the environment to sort of find a better way to catch them. I think those sort of things make sense for the series, and I do think that the world will be a bit more open than it has been in the past. Not quite as open as Breath of the Wild, not yet. I think we're a few years away from that, but I do think in 2019 the world will be more open than it ever has been before. Just think about how we've progressed from Gen 6 to Gen 7, and now when we see Gen 8, I definitely think it will be more open. So those are my thoughts on the matter, guys. What do you guys think? Do you think Pokemon will become more open world? Do you think it'll be open like Breath of the Wild? Let me know in the comments below. But anyways, everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe if you love Nintendo content. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and hit that notification bell. It really helps out my channel. And if you're even more interested than that, maybe check out my Twitter or my Discord community. We talk about a whole bunch of stuff there. You can even check out my Instagram and follow me there as well and see all the pictures I take. And if you want to support the channel beyond all of that, and if you really want to help me out, you can check out my Patreon, and for just $1 a month, you can obtain access to additional content that I will offer to you guys. But nevertheless, guys, I am thankful for you guys just watching these videos, and if you enjoyed it, please let me know, and let me know what you guys think. But anyways, everyone, that is it, and I'll see you all really soon. Bye.